Yeah, yep, I was right. I just looked at the video. That was about 21 minutes. So I apologize, but this is some very important content. We're going to take quite a few days to get through this. So I'm trying to break this up as much as possible and only assign a small amount of work every day as we move through this because I really do want you to understand the workings of the immune system. So, here we go back to it. The third line of defense is where we call in the special forces. This is the part where we have fighters that do some crazy stuff, okay? We've had our basic defenses of a good castle in the first line of defense. We've had our big bullies of the white blood cells show up to the scene to muscle the pathogen out of the body in a quarantine kind of method. They even turn up the heat in a localized or full body fever, making it difficult for these pathogens to even do anything while they get beat up and stopped from spreading to the rest of the body. That's what we've covered so far. But now we're going to get into the special forces. The special forces have gone through specialized organs and tissues so that they can be able to do specific jobs. Okay, we're going to focus on 2 cells, even though there are a dozen different cells that are involved in this, just to keep this simple. But I do want you to understand that there's 2 basic routes that we take. Okay, the overall response here is called the immune response. And as you can see, obvious by just a matter of logic, this must be specific, right? The first 2 lines of defense are non-specific, so logically this one is specific. And we call this the immune response. And its job is to look for antigens, right? We just talked about blood and how you have antigens on your blood cells that tell who they are. Well, remember, your body has antigens on all of its cells. We call them receptor molecules. And their job is to say self, right? I'm part of this body, Mr. White Blood Cell or T cell. Do not attack me, right? Where there are also receptors that are non-self. So these bacteria and other pathogens don't have the right receptors, and those are the ones that we're attacking. And that's their job, is to differentiate between self and non-self. And then what they do, it's awesome. But we'll get to that in a second. Let's first fill in our basic part here. Okay. Oh, I messed this up already. Hang on a second. Let me just add another line. This is where everybody yells at me. Okay. Up here, this is the immune. And then we'll use this line as the response. Okay. So, and this is specific. Sorry about that. All right. The whole category is called the immune response. It's broken up into 2 main parts that we're going to talk about. And this is a specific line of defense looking for specific antigens. And these are the 2 types that we're going to talk about. The first one is what is called cell-mediated. This is my favorite because it makes me think of a zombie apocalypse. Cell-mediated immunity is when a cell has been overtaken by a virus, usually. If a cell is taken in by a virus and it's making virus particles and virus DNA, it will send out what is called an interferon. And it is a white flag that says, hey, I am a cell that is under distress because I have foreign particles in me. And so a killer T cell shows up and says, well, if you're working for a virus, you're not working for the body. So they have to use the typical zombie theory. The approach is, of course, if you let a zombie live, the only thing it's going to do is bite and infect other zombies. So if you have an infected cell in your body, you're not going to save it. It's just going to infect other cells. So what do you got to do? You got to take it out. So you have what are called killer T cells that rupture infected body cells. And that's not even the cool part, right? Yeah, it's one thing to be like, oh, that guy got bit by a zombie. We got to blow his brains out. Well, the other cool thing is that they take that cell that has been infected and they turn it inside out and they wear it as a coat on their back. Not to like show off to the other cells like, hey, look at this thing I just killed. They wear it so that other cells know what to look out for. And those T cells will also kill other cells. So cell-mediated immunity is when killer T cells rupture infected body cells. Okay, so usually when you have a cold or a viral infection or things like that, and just cells of the body are overtaken by this cold, killer T cells go in and just kill them, take them out. We can make more cells, no problem. Okay. The second one down here is where we use the brains of the body, so to speak, where we use our tinkerers, right? This is also what's happening right now in all of our COVID patients, as well as what we'll talk about what comes next. But this is the humoral immunity. Humoral means fluid of the body. They used to talk about the 4 humors of the body: black bile, yellow bile, blood, something else. Anyways, you had humors of the body, the fluids of the body, and they would check your fluids to see how you were doing. And so that's where this term comes from. Because what we're specifically talking about in this case is when we have infections that are focused in the blood. Not to sound too disgusting, but if you think about it, your blood is like a river of gold to pathogens. If you were a bacteria, you would just be swimming in nutrients for as far as you could see and as long as you could live. And you could make as many babies and as many copies of yourself as you want, because being in the blood system of a human is just an endless river of nutrients. And so pathogens want to get into this river red of our body. And so, of course, we have to protect that. We do that usually through antibodies. And so, where do antibodies come from? They are not cells. Antibodies are proteins. So, they must be made. They are made by specific cells called B cells. So, B cells make antibodies to fight pathogens in the blood. But of course, they're found other places, but a lot of it focuses on your humor. So what are antibodies? Antibodies are Y-shaped proteins that help to destroy pathogens in the blood, and they are specific. So that's why we can't just say, hey, I've already had the flu, or I've already had coronavirus 2017. Why am I not getting it now? Well, because coronavirus 2019 is different, and so you need different antibodies to attach to the different antigens. And so people right now, their B cells are making antibodies for this coronavirus. And many people are winning the fight. So that is good news. So here is your diagram to look at. One last thing I want to point out before I cut this video is here's a good example of a review, right? A protein can sometimes be made up of one or more polypeptide chains, right? And an antibody is actually 4 polypeptide chains. This is a crude drawing, but there's usually one long chain here, one long chain here, a short chain here, and a short chain here. 4 polypeptide chains, and they form a specific shape right here to bond to that antigen that is going to hopefully stop this infection that you have. And so this is how we gain immunity to a specific pathogen, right? This is why people who survive COVID-19 can go back out into the world because they have the antibodies. And so this is where there would be, I'm sure, a crazy debate, right? There have been all kinds of discussions about what we should do. I'm not even going to get into it, but these antibodies will protect you. So if you do get COVID and you do survive, you do have the antibodies. So when there may be a reinfection in the fall or the spring or whatever, you will be covered. So that's always good news. It's just like when you get the chicken pox. Well, you didn't get the chicken pox because you probably got a vaccine, and that's what we'll talk about on the next video. So we're going to sign off from Draco's classroom, Biology in the Basement. I'm also going to attach on this Google Classroom post the Kyrgyzstan video that makes this look really cool. Also, homework is H171 to H173. Okay, be safe, be well, and we'll talk more about the immune system as we move along.